Hi scholars! I'm so glad that you joined me for today's art lesson. Today we are jumping back into art and I'm super duper excited. Today we're talking about a new artist. His name is Robert Indiana. Can you say the name Robert Indiana with me on three? Ready? 1, 2, 3. Robert Indiana. One more time. 1, 2, 3. Robert Indiana. Good job, scholars. So Robert Indiana was a very, very famous American artist. So he was here from the United States and he lived a really long and happy life. So today we're going to talk about his life, we're going to talk about his famous artworks, and just the other things that made him stand out as an artist. Okay, so let's get going. So Robert Indiana was born in 1928 and he was born in the United States in the state of Indiana. So if you notice where he's from, Indiana, and his name are the same. Now, this is because Robert Indiana used a fake name. I know that sounds kind of silly, but he had a really, really good reason. So when Robert Indiana was born, he had a different name. His name was Robert Clark, which is very, very close. His real name really is Robert, but he changed his last name. So when he was born, his name was Robert Clark, and then he grew up and he wanted to be a painter. And so he decided, Robert Clark, he just didn't think that it sounded good. He thought that it was like a little bit boring and he wanted people to remember his unique name. So he decided, you know what? I'm gonna change my name so that I can be more successful and so that people remember me better. So he decided that he was going to change his name to Robert Indiana because he was from Indiana and he just loved the way that it sounded. So Robert Indiana became his name as an artist, as a painter, and his plan really did work because everybody remembers Robert Indiana and everybody knows his name. Everybody recognizes and thinks that it's unique. So his plan definitely worked and helped him become a really cool artist, which I just think is super duper interesting. So friends, Robert Indiana was born in 1928 in Indiana here in the United States, and he lived all the way until 2019. That's a really, really long time to live, scholars. He was 91 years old when he passed away. I know, can you imagine being 91 years old? That's a really, really long time to live. So Robert Indiana, he lived until 2019 when he was 91, and that just means that he had a really, really long and happy and successful life. Robert Indiana basically never ever stopped making art. And so it's really, really cool to see that he kept going no matter how old he got. Just awesome, right? Before we talk about his artwork, we're gonna look at some of these pictures that are up behind me. This picture right here is actually a real picture of Robert Indiana. It's him when he's like 2 or 3 years old. We're not sure how old he is, but basically he's a toddler. He's a baby here. And then we have this picture of him when he's all grown up and already an artist. So we can tell that he's all grown up, not just by his his looks, but we can see that he's got all sorts of projects, art projects behind him. We can see he's standing at a work table. So we know that in this picture, based on all these clues, that he's already a famous artist and that he's already got all sorts of works underway, okay? So now let's look at a couple of those really, really famous artworks, okay? So Robert Indiana, he really became famous in the year 1966. He was already a little bit famous before that, but 1966 was a big year for him, okay? In 1966, he came out with this painting, and it's called Love. It's this one with the green and the blue and the red letters, scholars. So Love is this painting right here, and you can even see it spells the word love. It spells Love. And people just fell in love with his painting. So basically in 1966, Robert Indiana sent this painting out to a museum. and the museum put it up for everyone to see, and people just went crazy for it. I mean, they fell in love with his bright colors. They loved that the O was kind of tilted and a little bit silly. I mean, they just went crazy for this. So, because it got so much positivity, he decided to turn it into a sculpture. And that's what's right here in front of us. So this big sculpture came after his painting was really successful. So his painting just went off the charts with everybody, and he decided to turn it into a sculpture. If you're not sure what a sculpture is, we're going to talk a little bit more about that later in the week, but basically a painting is like a flat piece of art, and a sculpture is like a 3D piece of art. Okay, so this sculpture, for example, is huge. I mean, it is so tall. This sculpture is actually in Philadelphia, so it's on the other side of the country again, but this sculpture is huge, and lots of sculptures are either really big or they're really noticeable because they're 3D. Okay, scholars? So now let's start talking about what you're gonna return today and how I want you to do that. So scholars, today you're gonna tell me your favorite thing that you learned about Robert Indiana, and then tell me which artwork was your favorite. So remember, we had the painting of love and we had the sculpture of love. I want you to choose between those two and basically tell me which one was your favorite, okay? So you're gonna tell me your favorite thing about Robert Indiana, then you're gonna tell me your favorite artwork. All right, don't forget to explain yourself. I always like to hear your guys' explanations, okay? So if you need help, you can say something like, one thing I liked about Robert Indiana was, That's where you're gonna put your favorite thing about him. And then afterwards you can say, my favorite artwork was, That's where you choose between the painting or you choose the sculpture. Okay guys, if you need to go back and you need to look at the painting at the sculpture, just rewind this video, okay? So take a look, feel free to pause whenever you need to, just make sure that you are getting a good look so that you can make a good choice. All right, scholars? Remember, you have Flipgrid and Google Classroom where you can turn things into. If you're gonna use Flipgrid, you're gonna follow these steps and put the right code and then join with your school email. All right, scholars, you guys know the drill with Flipgrid. And remember, if Flipgrid doesn't work out for you, just use Google Classroom. Google Classroom is good for me too. All right, scholars? So don't forget, you're gonna choose which artwork you like best, you're gonna tell me why you like it, and you're gonna tell me your favorite thing that you learned about Robert Indiana. All right, guys? I'll see you guys later this week, and I'm so excited to see your responses. Bye.